What happened here is when I came, I was Dave's assistant, and I was supposed to be going to university. Like, he called me early, would I come up here and help him, because the club had burnt down, and now they're starting to play again, and nobody has any rackets. We had to string hundreds of rackets. We had like 800 people playing on a regular basis, an organized play, 600 kids and 200 adults. And it was just incredible, and he was just bogged under, so I come and help him, and then what happens is Mr. Aiken, who was the manager here, died. And so they moved up Roger Banks, and Dave moved into his spot.
About Roger, yeah.
Dave's spot, and I became the head pro sort of thing, and then
I came on.
Channarong came after, and then after that.
You became a sport director.
Yeah, I was the sports director, and then the assistant manager, and then they got the manager. Something happened. One of them left; he couldn't handle it, and then the other one got fired. So then they hired me.
You knew them well.
Yeah, so anyway, so that's when we brought Channarong here. Dave and I talked a lot about it, and that we needed to get somebody that was a good coach, but also a good player, so he could take Jamie and his cohorts on to the next level, and that's what we worked hard to do. And I think
I remember, after I finished the tour in Canada, so I told either Dave or Jim that I'm not going back to Thailand now. I'm going back to San Diego, California to study. He said, what? I said, yes. So he said, well, here's a card. Call me up when you want to come up and play badminton. So during the summertime, after college, I worked in the Chinese restaurant for a week. I said, God, this no fun, no fun. And I remember.
The food was lousy.
I remember foreign people told me that if you ever want to work badminton, give me a call. So I called him up. And he said, come up. You can come up to be a coach at the Glencoe Club. I said, no, I don't know how to coach. He said, no, you don't have to coach. Just play with a member.
Yeah, that's what we did.
Yeah, that's why I came up and played with Jimmy and all the whole bunch of good junior here. No problem. And I enjoyed so much. So they taught me to come up to work here full time. That's how I came to Glencoe. That was 1966 somewhere.
But my memory is that was the summer of 1966, but that you went back to Thailand to play in the Asian Games.
Yeah.
And you won the gold medal, and they put you in a camp there, which was probably worse than the restaurant that you were working in.
Yeah.
And they put you in a camp, and you trained every day, and then you won the gold medal in the Asian Cup. And then you came in 67 full time, and Jim hired you in 67 full time.
And then I remember at that time, Canadian didn't have an embassy in Thailand. It was a office in the British
embassy.
Yeah, and then I having problem getting a visa to come to Canada. So foreign B or Jim called somebody in Ottawa.
We got one of the senators actually did it for was it? Hayes Senior maybe.
Yeah.
Eh? I think it might have been then that kind of expedited it a bit. But well, what they say is you have to advertise across the country to make sure there's not a Canadian that can do the job that you've set out to do. And we just said to them, we know that. We don't have to advertise or anything. We know nobody in Canada is going to come close to beating this guy. And so the guy went to work for us and did get it through. And it worked out pretty well then.
I supposed to be here after the Asian game, and that was 1967. And then the visa didn't come through until April. So I flew from Bangkok to Calgary in April 1967. Oh, yeah. That's how I started working at Glencoe Club here.
Right.
After the fire, when Jim came, they became a systematic, programmed approach to attracting players, training, fitness, with a goal to play internationally. Jim and Dave Fallsby always held it up to you that winning a national title wasn't that big a deal. It was something to strive for, but your final target should be international achievements. That it would be for men, Thomas Cup, which was the World Team Championships, and for women, Uber Cup and Commonwealth Games, and those tournaments. Now the European circuit was a little bit difficult for us because we were all in school, and those all happened in March and April, which is Easter exam time, and so we didn't do a lot of traveling to Europe. I went 1 year with Channarong, maybe 2, and traveled as an unofficial member of the Thai team. But mostly our time was spent in the summer and in the tournaments that were available to us out of school time, because everybody who played here was in school. And then as Channarong said, they went on to university afterwards, and so your time was very precious until school was out in the summer. So we benefited from the programmed approach. First of all, the club supported all the sports with basically unlimited time and access to the courts for competitive training. We had the strongest professional group of any club in the world in terms of all the major sports had world-class, knowledgeable, dedicated professionals, programs for kids. If you wanted to learn a sport, if you wanted to train for it, the opportunity was here. And then when Channarong joined, he brought that world-class capability to play, along with an international awareness and capability that brought a whole different perspective to the club and to those of us who were keen on that. And many Glencoe members went on to play for the Commonwealth Games team, eventually the Olympics, many international events, the Pan Ams, Mexico, several other team events and individual events, and it was all because of the beginning of the program that Jim started under Dave Fallsby and was expanded with Channarong in the National Team Center, which the Glencoe allowed to work out of the club here for many years, and Channarong coached.
That one thing about the Glencoe Cup here, there's a lot of gifted athletes at the club, but it's the coach. It's the one have to really, like Jim Powell, when before I came here, he had one of the best junior in the whole country. Jimmy Paulson, Doug McGivey, Maurice Morrison, Susan Cutmore, Lorraine Todd, Shirley Boyd. Yeah, they're all so gifted. All you have to do is just talk with them, show them the new way, more international. Year after year, they keep winning the national because it starts from Jim. Because they were a whole bunch of good junior here. We pretty much dominate. In the final, I just go to the bar relaxing because they play each other. Boys sing, girls sing. I said, what do you do? He said, well, I cannot coach because they each other. They are many years. The Glencoe Cup dominated the Canadian junior, but of course, after junior, they start, they are professional family, so they start, after junior, they quit, they concentrate university, and then 4 years, so they up to the senior level. We don't have too many Glencoe members. And then after university, start working, come back to the club, play badminton. That's why the main league, it's all come from junior ladder. Junior ladder competitive. Well, look at how strong they are. If you look at 6 o'clock league even now, it's a former national team member. I can't even spare 6 anymore. I start sparing 7A and 7B because no longer can keep on. At best, it's still pretty healthy. The 6 o'clock league, all the even did that. Every time I come down, watch it. Like, my God, look at Logan, Alex Pang, what they call Martin Juffi, Andrew Meir, Joseph Dawson. They're all man.
Yeah, we had 96 men every Monday night. And they even went over to Tuesday after a while there. So there were a lot, weren't there?
Yeah, that's why I keep coming down and see it all come from junior ladder, the system. The system that Jim and Dave created, junior ladder system, is one of the best anywhere in the world.
Yeah, I've coached, I taught badminton to third-year phys ed students at the university. They asked me to, and then I coached their team that went in. In those days, they had a national badminton championship, and pretty good standard.
Co-ed.
Wasn't it? Yeah, co-ed, yes.
Correct.
And so there we're going to Brandon.
On the train.
So on we get in the train. I remember sitting up in the top thing, and Jamie's sitting next to me, and he's saying, "This is fast as this thing goes. We're never going to get there." You know? Anyway, we got there, and there's some guy from the east that they're all touting was going to just whip you out there, and they don't know who he was. He was
I don't remember.
a guy, but anyway, he managed to whip him quite badly, but. And it went really well. Then coming home, we hit a big truck with the train, and we had to sit there for a day and a night. or
Yes,
something
it sat on
waiting
the
for
tracks, yeah.
them to come and bring us a new engine and fix it all up and that. But we had a lot of different funny experiences with those, didn't we?
Oh, we had some funny experiences on that trip, that's for sure. I had to make a speech at the awards banquet, so they introduced the various winners of the various categories, and so then they introduced me, and I got up and I said, "Thanks very much for the awards, and Jim Powell would now like to make a speech." And I sat down, and Jim has many talents, and he loves many things in public, but one of those is not public speaking. And he was mortified, and he had to get up in front of this crowd and the press and all the athletes from all of the events were there. And oh my gosh, it was.
It wasn't just badminton.
It was quiet on the ride home after that.
Yeah.
There was an invitation to a large Canadian team, men and women. I think it ended up 6 men, 6 women, coach, manager.
There were 15 of us.
There were 15 altogether, and maybe a trainer or something. I'm not sure. So I was lucky enough to be one of the guys to go, and then, but it was a big team. So most of the good players in the top players in the country went, and it was it was under Mao Zedong, so it was the communist state, and it was a life experience for us, that's for sure. And we traveled by train mostly in China and the Chinese cities hadn't had their names changed as they did after Mao Zedong. So we went to Canton and took the train to Peking, which is now Guangzhou and Beijing. But we played, we were there for, was it 6 weeks, Jim? It was a long time. We played a lot of badminton. And we could see that the Chinese were going to be unbeatable. In a matter of time, they had such depth of players and so many people playing. And at one stadium in Beijing, we played in front of 50,000 people, which
they fill all the stairways in that for
just
people. Like
it was incredible.
Fire regulations or anything like we have, and wasn't that incredible?
And they had not seen many white people, so when we walked in the streets, we attracted huge crowds. So when we wanted to go to a department store, they had to close the store, and then we would go and get
Shanghai, they closed 3 blocks
because
for us to shop.
We were very unusual. But it was a wonderful trip. It was a once in a lifetime trip, and we had a terrific time. And Jim was the coach. Or manager, or both?
No, I was the coach. I became the manager when we got there.
Rolf Patterson was the manager, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was a trip of a lifetime. And then we came back out into Hong Kong, took the train down to Hong Kong and played a match in Hong Kong. And it was just fantastic.
Yeah,
Can't say enough about it.
The whole thing was just, was incredible. We had, and they put on big banquets every night and things like this. And it was quite funny because in Beijing, I'm sitting across the table from this little fellow there, little tiny guy, and he was the head of the chairman of the Communist Party in Beijing for all of China, actually. And so we get going, and then I don't think he did, but his cohort got up and made a little speech, and then I was required to sort of say something of that. But this guy kept making toasts, and he had this Mao Tai stuff. I don't know if you ever had this. if you drink it.
It's a fiery white
I'm
liquor.
sure it's what turpentine would taste like if you actually had it. So anyway, we have this, so we have this several times, and we're sitting there just about dying, you know. And then the next day, we go off down to Shanghai. Well, we get to Shanghai, and God, they've got another party set up, and there's a little guy across from me again with the drinks lined up in front of him. I said, holy God, I don't know if we can do this. You know, I talked to Jamie. We kind of had a laugh because I sort of got up and said, well, in Canada, we do these toasts a little differently. And I went like this and drank it down. And I went like this, you see, threw the glass over my shoulder. Well, he dives out of his chair, catches it, and lands on the carpet in the back of this banquet room. Wow. It was so funny. They just roared. They thought, anyway, that night I get a call in my room from the ambassador in Beijing. And he says, what are you doing? And I said, are we being bad? And he says, no, they love it. Keep it up. And I said, I don't think we can do that. It was really
Well, it took us a while to figure out that the Chinese players were not drinking. They had phony drinks.
Yeah.
So they were pouring us this liqueur and then toasting, shooting it, which was killing us. And they were drinking, we didn't know it, but they were drinking water.
Yeah.
So we found that out, and at one banquet, we switched glasses. So the Chinese players got, and so we had the big toast, and we all took our shot glass and drank it, and so did the Chinese players, and there was retching and throwing and spitting, and
The two most important thing during my coaching at the Glencoe Cup is first, 1 year ago, we hosted United States always beat Canada in the Thomas Cup. Thomas Cup. And it was the first time that we were hosting the...
That's the World Team Championships.
Yeah, it's the
that
World
Thomas Cup?
Men's
Thomas
Team
Cup.
Championship.
Yeah.
Men's team.
1 year ago, we were hosting the Thomas Cup in...
69, 70, 69? Yeah.
69.
Can't believe I remember that,
Yeah.
but that's pretty good.
And then for the first time that in the history of Thomas Cup, Canada beat United States
Yeah.
at the Glencoe Cup here.
Yeah.
And then, my God, you know, all these Glencoe members who's so keen in badminton,
Yeah.
we have a big celebration down at the Glencoe Cup.
Yeah.
The champagne.
It wasn't planned ahead or anything, really.
Yeah, it just, everybody just say, hey, come on, let's go upstairs and have
Yeah.
like big celebration. That's one thing I remember,
Yeah, I
my,
remember that too. Yeah.
highlight working at the Glencoe Cup. And the second highlight I ever have it, 1974, it's a Commonwealth game.
72.
Jamie remembers.
No,
when-
70 and 74.
What's that?
The Commonwealth Games. 70 was in Scotland.
In Scotland. And then seeing Jimmy Paulson won the gold medal, individual gold medal in Scotland.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we were so, well, to be honest with you, you know, the guy he played is what, Powell, no? He's a world. And this guy, I don't know, you have me ranking or not. Yeah. And for the dark horse, nobody ever know about this Jimmy Paulson from Canada.
Yeah.
Got to on the way to the semi-final. I can't remember who you play, and then final against Paul Whitnell. And man, everything. Oh wow, lucky get to. And I did try to sign him up. Come on, Jimmy, you can do that. Jimmy, you can do that. And this guy went out and won the gold medal for the first time. Yeah. And then his dad, Mr. Paulson, was there to cheer up. We went out of town. We went celebrate in Edinburgh.
Yep, somewhere in Edinburgh.
Edinburgh. We're looking for some restaurant to go celebrate the gold medal. These are the two highlights, you know. I remember working for the Glencoe Cup. And the thing that I also remember that when Jim Powell was the chairman for the World Championship. That's the only three.
Yeah. We're the only club that ever held that.
Only in Canada.
Usually it's a country that has it, you know.
Well, it seemed like a natural progression at the time for so many of the players. The people who were active in badminton, like all the other sports down here, were intimately involved with the club itself. So as you grow and the general rhythm is that as you go through university, you get your job and you get established, and then at some point you begin to think, well, maybe I should be contributing and be on the board. So a number of badminton players who participated in other sports, but in particular in badminton, I'm thinking of Doug McGilvery, Ken Delph, the names are Rick Simonton, Carol Anderson. They all came from a badminton or a sports background, and then sat on the board, usually for 4 or 5 or 6 years, and then served as president. And the club it's a non-profit club, obviously, and it's much bigger now than it used to be. But I think probably the membership is probably around the same, with a huge waiting list. So there are tremendous pressures on the club. And fortunately, when I was president, Jim was CEO and manager. And the club has always been extremely well run. And as Channarong said, financial management is critical. And I think Calgarians have a very strict sense of how a business should be managed, especially a private club. And so the club pays its bills and is well financed.
When I first came, you see, and I told you we had 800 players. Well, remember, we had no indoor tennis courts at that time. We just put in our first 2 squash courts. So there wasn't another racket sport that was a competition, more or less, to badminton. So all the kids, just about, like everyone I look at in the hallway, they're older. I even recognize them because I knew their grandfather played badminton when I came here and stuff like that. And so to keep attracting the kids to do this, plus they've got a zillion other things they can do now. And I think you've got to be very careful too what you introduce as new sports too, and try and keep them. So you don't want to divide everything up to such a level that and you can't be all things to all people, I don't think either. So I think you've got to be a little bit careful and try to make it attractive to people too. You got to make it so they're having fun, and do special things that make them come out, you do Halloween things and different things, so you start the kids younger now, which is probably a good thing, and stuff like that. And I don't know what else. What can you think of, James? That would
I would say 2 things. One is, I think in the current environment in Alberta, finances are going to be an issue. Sooner or later, the problems with our economy are going to affect the club's finances. And so the prudent and careful management of the club's financial resources and its expenditures is going to be extremely important and difficult. So that's, to me, that's very important, because without as all the other clubs in the country have experienced, without the financial reserves, you lose your flexibility and your alternatives as to how you respond going forward. And the second thing is that the Glencoe has a fairly finite physical facility here, limited land. We're sort of maxed out, and the challenge for the club will be to stay current and attractive, as Jim said, to the members, while maintaining the old physical facility that is now was built in 1930 and rebuilt in '62. So it needs constant upgrades and constant refurbishment, and you're always having a debate between the older members of the club who don't like to see the expenditures as they potentially raise dues, and the young members which want new attractions and new developments and things like that. So there's a balance, and for me, the role for the members is to make sure that they elect a board and committees that are knowledgeable and committed to the club and have a history, so they understand the spirit of the club around here. And at the same time, that the management, who are professionals, handle the finances in such a way that that the club can offer value for money on the dues and on the food and beverage and other services and maintain its financial independence, because if things fall apart financially, it'll be very difficult to maintain the fabric and the integrity of the club.
Yeah, we used to try very hard to balance the dues of our members, because we have members from pretty well all walks of life out there too. They aren't all wealthy people, as a lot of people think. There are a lot of people that are, teachers, policemen, firemen, different things that, do reasonably well, but they struggle a bit probably to pay their dues and things there. And we always used to take that in consideration. And when I was running the place, we actually ran into a situation where for a number of years the city and the neighborhood would just fight everything any improvement we tried to make. And part of it we had to do was try and make parking improvements to try and make the neighbors a little happier and things like that. And so that became difficult. So we ended up, actually when I left, I think we left about 13 million in the bank, because we'd done Corby. Well, I always made sure we made some money every year, and it didn't have to be a huge amount, but it added up over the years. It went without making the cost too high. That's why I always avoided things like this Jamie mentioned about or somebody mentioned about having to pay so much a month and things like that. I just don't like making people come here to eat and drink. They should come in because they want to, because it's good. And that's what you have to sort out. Even our pro shops here, like between here and the golf course, each pro shop does over $1 million in sales a year, and probably nets 300,000 or 400,000, which is substantial, And so you've got to run it a bit like a business and still be a club and things like that. I don't ever want to get, like the Eastern clubs, what they do is you pay a basic membership to belong to the club, but that doesn't get you into any of the sports, okay? Then you pay a fee for each sport you play and for each member of your family. And by the time you're done, you can pay an awful lot there to be able to do that. And the other thing, you make it difficult. Like I used to talk to the badminton pros in the other places in Toronto, and they'd say, well, yeah, I got to not only convince them to come out and play badminton, I got to convince them to pay another $300 or $400 a year to be able to do that. Where here, you just talk them into come and try out badminton and do it. It's a whole different way of seeing. Plus, you get separate things. Like you go for a vote for something on the club, and the squash guys want new squash courts, but the badminton and the swimmers and everything else, and we're not paying for those. We're not voting for those. We don't do those. We don't even belong to that part. And you got to still keep it as a club. In my opinion, it's very important to do that, and keep it up. Like in fitness, you got to keep up with the latest gadgets and methods and whatever, you read them in the papers and that, they're always changing, and they got goats on your back and everything and stuff, so you better get ready to put the barn in up there. Anyway.
I don't have any management experience. I was not a badminton pro down here.
Well, you had a lot of people to manage there at Channarong, that's for sure.
Well, I like to compliment Jim Powell for his badminton vision and all the things, all the success of the badminton at the Glencoe Club. I like to contribute to Jim Powell during the year I work here, create a national training center and all the things that we like to do. Jim's always a big supporter to the success of the badminton at the Glencoe Club here. It's a very, and particularly all the what you call a program, the system like that. He during my time, Jim was more actively involved with me, and all the idea I present to him, it's always support, no problem. People used to ask me, I said, well, all the year I work here, Jim Powell never scold me or tell me what to do in my badminton. He always support, ask me a question, why, so and so. Always behind the scenes support. And I like to credit him with Jim's idea and the vision of the badminton section.
He's not much of a player. any cheats.
No, that's right, yeah.
I feel very strongly that Jim is often overlooked for the development of the badminton program and the national and international success that many of us had. Just because Channarong came along in 1967 and dominated the conversation after that. But I know from my very fortunate experience that Jim was the one who started the systematic programmed approach to training for badminton with learning skills, shot selection, and having a perspective that looked out internationally, not just on the city and the provincial tournaments, which everybody was focused on, municipal championships and provincial championships. And Jim brought a different perspective. He was responsible with Dave Fallsby for bringing Channarong. He helped manage him. He encouraged him, provided the support from the Glencoe Club for the things that Channarong wanted to do here. And Jim made sure that the resources that were necessary were available, and in many ways he facilitated Channarong's success with the national team here by being supportive. I feel very strongly that Jim was the second stone in that accomplishment, the first being Dave Fallsby, second being Jim, and the third being Channarong. And the likes of them will never be repeated. And I think the success that the Glencoe had in that period of time, including my own, is directly attributed to that.
I already said something about Jimmy personally. You probably should say something about.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I said. Yeah, I said Jimmy is a good Canadian badminton ambassador for the game because Jimmy is very good on the court, very determined, very smart playing, and off the court is also good with the media, good publicity for the game, good for the game. That's why I recognize Jimmy is a good Canadian badminton ambassador, similar to Wayne Gretzky in hockey.
Oh my heavens, Channarong.
Goodness.
Yeah, goodness.
You said
One thing Jamie did a little better than the other players that were here, or quite a bit better actually, is he always looked further ahead. Like they would go and say, I'm going to play the All England, gee, I hope I can win a round. He always went saying, gee, I hope I can win the tournament. Sort of was a different thing. He had this vision that if he played well, he could beat these. And he did beat a lot of very good players over there, that too. Like even, like remember he used to have real battles with the Swedish guy.
That's Sture Johnson.
Yeah. And that's it. But one would win one time and the other.
Yeah.
But you had the greatest games. I mean, they went on forever and very, very good. But even when you were often invited to tournaments in Asia that other, I don't know how you say it, Caucasian people or something weren't and things like that. You were especially invited over there to play. I think that's a real feather in your hat doing that.
I think a lot of that was because they wanted a reciprocal invitation to the Glencoe Club in the summer.
That could be.
But I would take